Irvin Studin. My final pitch, Canada, do not ratify USMCA. I think I've been on the record in a quite activist way in saying, Canada, USMCA must not be ratified in its current form. I hope I've made my case. It's certainly part of the resistance to this major trade agreement, which has a quasi-constitutional character for Canada. Imagine it as effectively our external constitution, or a major part of it, that requires deep debate and analysis before we make it the cage that governs us for the next 30 or 40 years. I'm on the record as saying it's inadequate, indeed contrary to Canadian interests, specifically through Section 3210. Some call it the China Clause. I call it the Vassal Clause. I might go further and say it's a self-vassalizing clause. And Canada, let me be direct. A country that is a vassal state does not have foreign policy by definition. If we become a vassal state, I consider the whole field of Canadian foreign policy dead. I don't want to participate in it, and I hope that you won't pretend to be participating in it, because it will not exist. It will all be articulated through Washington. Every other country in the world will know that, recognize that, and we will be in what I call pantomime foreign policy, if you want to put more language on paper in that field. But let me say this, a country that's self-vassalizing, as we're tending to do in 3210 and through USMCA as it now reads, a country that self-vassalizes does not deserve a foreign policy. And therefore we ought not even to pretend. What's this business about wanting a Security Council seat? You cannot be a vassal state and pretend to be doing global policy or dictating terms or trying to help other countries in the world in a meaningful way, and certainly not as a sovereign power. So I'm against the vassal state. I'm against the mistake of the tragic strategic mistake of self-vassalization for several reasons. I have not gone so far publicly as to demand the resignation of the principal negotiators. It's strictly not personal, strictly in the national interest. 3210 forbids Canada from negotiating a free trade agreement, not just with China, but indeed with all the other major powers of the world with which we don't have free trade agreements, without the say-so of Washington, full stop. You might say, so what? Washington is all that matters. And even if I give that to you, even if I give that to you reluctantly, I would say we will still be punished after the fact, because after we self-vassalize through that, after we have no prospect of escape from that cage, Washington will punish us because we have nowhere to go. It will not respect us. And after we sign into law, the Trump administration, which has just signed a major bilateral first stage agreement with China that has all sorts of undertakings by China to buy exclusively from the United States, at the expense, by the way, of American markets. The United States did not consult us, contrary to 3210, by the way, which is said to have a reciprocal quality. That type of dynamic will continue. The United States will do everything internationally in spite of us, in our name, and for its own interest only, and will punish us for our vassalization. We will be bound by law by 3210 and other requirements of USMCA, and the United States will not, under a Trump 2.0 in particular, behave lawfully. What if they start to tariff us again in an expressionistic way, capriciously, on all sorts of things, aluminum, steel, softwood lumber, let it be manufacturing goods in the future, let it be agriculture, anything under national security pretext, and we will have nowhere to go. And Washington will know that. They will not respect us, and other countries will know that we will have signed away permission to negotiate with them on any upward trajectory, even short of a free trade agreement, through 3210. Let that not happen. But even if that doesn't persuade you, let me get right to the nub of the current crisis in Canada on national unity. The Wexit crisis, notwithstanding all the ideology about good and bad internationally in the world, cannot be addressed without a meaningful Canadian opening to China. Full stop. The Western economic crisis in Canada requires a meaningful economic opening to China. And so we have two problems. One is we have signed that away in 3210. Does anyone know that? And two, we've created this strange ideological aversion to China, which doesn't allow us to address our own national unity issues. So we have a double problem, a wicked problem. We cannot address Wexit without a meaningful economic opening to China, which is close to the West. And the West itself recognizes that the United States is buying a lot of natural resources from Alberta, from Canada, at a discount because Canada cannot get to Asian markets because of infrastructural, legal, environmental bottlenecks. Right? And yet it itself, in many cases, through certain parties, and I'm nonpartisan here, has created very sharp ideological aversion to China for some reason. Right? America good, China bad. However, those same people, the leaders of those parties, might be suffering the symptoms of Wexit. They need that economic opening to China, so it's incoherent in their own political ideology. What about the North? What about the Arctic? We cannot develop the Arctic on our own terms without similarly a meaningful economic opening to Asia, which is very close to Yukon, very close to Yellowknife and Inuvik. Look at the geographies, look at the proximities there. I've spoken about that in the past. Okay? So if we want to be self-governing, work on our own terms, and have the respect of all of the countries of the world as we move into the 21st century, let's not self-vassalize. Let's not be a vassal state. Let's be a major power, equal amongst equals amongst major powers. And let's extract maximum rents from all of them. It requires us to think for ourselves. 3210 is a tragic mistake. Either it is extracted, expunged, extricated from USMCA, or we do not ratify. If we do ratify, we will never get out of that box. And if I'm the United States, I would never let us out of that box. And that's to the expense, at the detriment of our national unity, our development in the North, and our national dignity.